Nkem? What, what are you doing in this room? You're supposed to be at home cooking or something.
I was at home, Tunde. But today, I'm the one deciding whether your company survives the month.
Mr. Tunde, please take a seat. You are addressing our majority shareholder.
Before we find out how a forgotten housewife ended up holding the keys to a billion-naira empire, let me know which city or country you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single second of Nkem's journey. Lagos, Nigeria, 2:14 p.m. The afternoon sun beat down on the chaotic streets of Victoria Island, but inside the restaurant, it was perfectly cool. White tablecloths, expensive wine, and the sound of wealthy men celebrating wrapped the room in luxury. Nkem stood just outside the main dining area. In her hands, she held a neatly packed cooler. She had spent her entire morning preparing her husband's favorite meal, driving through hours of brutal Lagos traffic just to surprise him. She never made it to his table. She stopped just close enough to hear her husband, Tunde's voice, rising above the chatter, warm, relaxed, and dripping with the arrogance of a man who thought he owned the world. His colleagues were boasting about their wives. One bragged about a new medical clinic his wife had opened. Another showed off pictures of a fashion label expansion. Then, someone turned to Tunde. "What about Nkem? What's she up to these days?" Tunde laughed. It wasn't a malicious laugh, which made it worse. It was a laugh of pure dismissiveness. "Nkem, she stays home, she raises our daughter, and spends my money," Tunde said, flashing a grin to the table. The men laughed with him. Tunde leaned in, delivering the final blow. "Honestly, if I stopped paying the bills for even 1 month, she wouldn't even know how to feed herself. She completely relies on me." Nkem stood, frozen. The words felt like a physical slap. She didn't cry. She didn't cause a scene. She walked to the table, placed the food down quietly, forced a smile, and said, "I hope you enjoy your meal." Then she turned around and walked back to her car. Sitting in the driver's seat, staring blindly at the steering wheel, Nkem realized something terrifying. She had been disappearing for 12 years, and she had finally hit rock bottom. 12 years earlier, Nkem wasn't invisible. She was a powerhouse. She had real corporate ambitions, mapped out in journals she used to read every night. When she married Tunde, his construction company was on the brink of bankruptcy. Nkem didn't hesitate. She sold a massive plot of prime inherited land left by her late father, land she loved deeply, and poured every single kobo into Tunde's failing business. She didn't ask for a contract, she didn't ask for equity, she just believed in him. But as the money poured in, Tunde's ego mutated. He started making passing comments about her appearance. Then he stopped taking her to corporate events. His elite aunt openly mocked Nkem at family gatherings, whispering that Nkem had let herself go and that Tunde deserved a glamorous wife who matched his new high society status. Nkem took the hits in silence. She had forgotten how to fight back. The breaking point happened in the dead of night. Her 7-year-old daughter crept into the living room, looked into Nkem's exhausted face, and asked a devastating question. "Mommy, why don't you ever smile anymore?" That was the spark. The very next morning at 4:45 a.m., while the house was pitch black, Nkem put on old sneakers and stepped out into the morning air. What started as morning walks became intensive training. She overhauled her health, she returned to the business books she had abandoned, and the hollow, defeated look in her eyes began to vanish. But the physical transformation was just a cover. For the past 7 years, using secret personal funds and dividends she had quietly accumulated, her name never appeared on a single public document. While Tunde sat at upscale restaurants mocking her for spending his money, Nkem was funding statewide logistics networks, acquiring massive agricultural farmlands, and quietly buying up shares in a massive private investment consortium. She wasn't just building a safety net. She had built an empire. And nobody had a clue. The 25th floor, 11:15 a.m. Tunde's entire life came down to this day. His company had been shortlisted for a historic government-backed infrastructure contract worth billions of naira. It was the deal that would make him untouchable. The final approval rested entirely with a private investment group. Tunde adjusted his custom-tailored suit, adjusted his luxury watch, and walked into the elite boardroom with absolute confidence. He pitched flawlessly. The board members seemed impressed. The chairman of the consortium stood up. Excellent presentation, Mr. Tunde. However, as per our corporate structure, the final signature and absolute veto power belong to our majority shareholder. She has just arrived. The heavy double doors of the boardroom swung open. A woman stepped inside. She wore an immaculate, tailored, cream-colored power suit. She moved with an undeniable, effortless authority that made every executive in the room instantly stand up out of respect. Tunde squinted, his smile faltering. The woman looked familiar. Too familiar. Then, the realization crashed into him like a freight train. The billionaire majority shareholder, the person who held his entire life's work, his future, and his company's survival in her hands, was Nkem, his stay-at-home wife. Nkem didn't look at him with petty triumph. She didn't gloat. She simply sat at the head of the table, opened the contract folder, and treated him exactly like what he was, an applicant begging for her approval. The meeting concluded with agonizing tension. Nkem dismissed the board, leaving only Tunde standing frozen in the empty room. Tunde's hands were visibly shaking. The reality of what he had thrown away, what he had mocked, and who he had married was crushing him. Nkem closed her folder and stood up to leave. Nkem, please, Tunde choked out, his voice cracking. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Are you going to deny the contract to destroy me? Nkem stopped at the door. She didn't look back. I don't make business decisions based on emotion, Tunde, she said softly. But before I sign this, there is something else you need to see. Something your aunt and your lawyers have been hiding from you. She placed a bright red confidential folder on the table, walked out, and the heavy doors clicked shut behind her. Inside that red folder was a document that would completely shatter Tunde's wand and change the custody of their daughter forever. What was inside that secret red folder, and how will Tunde react when he finds out the true depth of Nkem's power? Drop your theories in the comments below. If you want to see part 2 immediately, make sure to smash that like button. Let's get this video to 5,000 likes and the next chapter drops tomorrow.